Are you scared of spiders?
Will you come into my parlour, said the spider to the fly.
Because Doctor Who has been traumatizing me with them for a very, 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 very long time, which is why I've taken the liberty to take an incy-wincy deep dive into the entire history of spiders in Doctor Who, so you don't have to. I spent weeks researching some of the most terrifying, horrific, and downright weirdest encounters the Doctor has had with spiders. So beware, because this video isn't for the faint of heart. Welcome to the basement of the Whoniversal's HQ. I'm Jerry the Meerkat, and fittingly being in a basement, today I want to talk about spiders. And not just the big old red ones either, because I'm sure many of you are aware there's a new giant spider in town. So let's talk about that first, shall we? The Story in the Engine is the 5th episode of Season 2, and oh boy, do I love it. Some of my fellow Whoniversals have already reviewed the previous episodes of the season so far, with mostly positive reviews, so go check those out if you haven't already. But where do I feel this episode fits into the season? I felt the robot...
Did somebody say robots?
Not now, Big Weld. You missed it. We reviewed that episode weeks ago.
Ah, shucks. Gonna go back to playing with dominoes then.
As I was saying, The Robot Revolution was an okay season opener and was an improvement on Space Babies, with Belinda being the standout of the episode. Despite the extremely talented and fantastic Alan Cummings' excellent voice performance paired with some impeccable animation, looks as a story fell flat for me after the first act and was sadly a huge letdown. The well was freaky in a good way, even though it doesn't hold a candle to Midnight. But oh well, and Lucky Dare was equally impressive for different reasons. So with the gaining momentum of the season, I had high hopes for this one and was not let down. It was a compelling story with impressive visual effects and wasn't afraid to delve into some serious topics. Plus, with Joe Martin's cameo and a few other references to other stories, this episode even manages to stick the landing with fan service. I especially like the scene where the Doctor chose to tell the story of Belinda, making for an impactful scene in place of what could have been another one of his fantastical adventures. Another standout scene for me was when the barber tried to reveal himself as a god, but the Doctor just responded by laughing and telling him that he isn't a god. This works as both a twist and subtle fourth wall break to the fans who would have been expecting him to be another god, like Lux or Sutekh, and it's this multi-layeredness that reels me in, wanting more. I could write an essay on how amazing this episode is, but let's turn our attention to the spider. In this story, it is revealed that the barbershop is part of a giant mechanical spider that feeds on stories. Visually stunning, the spider occupies a giant web in a domain of its own that links different mythologies together. Barbara intends to use the spider to destroy the gods by replacing their stories with his own, more or less. But luckily, the Doctor saves the day by overloading it with his stories from his life, causing it to explode. What if I told you that this was just the most recent of many encounters the Doctor has had with the giant spider? Well, let's go all the way back to when it began in 1964.
Great color shows, fun galore, Flintstones, Johnny Quest, and lots more.
What do you do when there's nothing to do? Give a show! Give a show!
My Kenner!
Kenner's Give a Show projector was a popular toy in the 1960s. It was a plastic projector that used a bright torch and lens to project comic strips containing 6 slides onto the wall. In 1965, Kenner released 16 Doctor Who slide packs, one of which contained the first notable appearance of a spider in Doctor Who. Doctor Who in the Spider's Web. The first Doctor is travelling with his companions Ian and Barbara when the TARDIS appears to have landed. However, an overly eager Barbara wants to be the first of the trio to step foot on whatever new planet they've landed on. Fortunately for Barbara, they're caught in a giant spider's web, of which Barbara is now entangled with no chance of escaping the giant, hungry spider who presumably made the web. Barbara's death is probably one of the most chilling deaths in all of Doctor Who. Wait, sorry. Barbara is saved by the Doctor and they escape, but not before we get a good look at the giant spider. Considering these projectors are targeted at kids, I must say projecting these 4 square feet onto the wall must have been somewhat scary. If you want to watch any of these comic slides, they have since been released as bonus features on the Chase DVD and as part of the Season 2 Blu-ray box set. Learning from this, the Doctor never got caught in a web ever again. until a few months later when the same thing happened again. Except this time, it wasn't a spider's web, it was a Zilligan web, and according to TARDIS Wiki, they are completely different to spiders, because like a real spider, Zilligans can scream in pain. Who wrote this? The Doctor manages to survive the situation by injecting the Zilligan with hydrogen cyanide, killing it dead as it presumably screamed in pain. Thankfully, after such a traumatic encounter, the Doctor really manages to stop getting caught up in spiders' webs. For a year, that is, because in the following year's annual, the Doctor and his comic series grandchildren, John and Gillian, are imprisoned in a volcanic crater, getting caught in a spider's web made by spider-like prisoners. Now, that really was the last significant time the First Doctor had a run-in with spiders. That's more than can be said for his poor grandchildren, John and Gillian. Now travelling with the Second Doctor, John and Gillian land on a new planet, so the Doctor can test out his new ray gun that he invented. Shortly after testing the gun on a tree, the trio come face to face with a giant mechanical spider being operated by the Master of Spiders. At first they attempt to flee, but the Master of Spiders is able to control giant spiders that inhabit the planet using sound waves to control them, sending them after the trio. The Doctor uses his new ray gun to shoot one of the spiders, dead, but they are soon trapped with nowhere to go. Cunningly, the Doctor uses his trusty recorder to stop the spiders from killing them by interfering with the Master's signals. Soon after, the Doctor uses his ray gun to shoot the mechanical spider, triggering an explosion, killing the Master of Spiders. And I thought the First Doctor's lethal injection was out of character. Number 2 is out here with his ray gun shooting anything that moves. This is all prior to spiders actually appearing in the mainline show. So who were the first spiders to actually go up against the Doctor on TV?
A Time Lord's word is his bond.
Doctor!
Put your hands in the air.
You're trying to increase your mental powers to infinity.
Exactly!
Take the next right course. I cut him off.
Has a license to thrill in John Pertwee's final story. Planet of the Spiders is for your eyes only. Thursday at 12:10 on UK Go.
Planet of the Spiders marks the end of the Third Doctor's time on the show. After 5 seasons battling Daleks, the Master, dinosaurs, and social injustices, it would be the 8 legs, alongside a healthy dose of radiation, of course, Doctor's real enemy, that would cause the death of the Third Doctor. These spiders began life as regular Earth spiders, exposed to powerful blue crystals on the planet of Metabelius 3, after a starship of human colonists crashed on the planet. The exposure to the crystals caused them to grow in size and mental power, leading to their eventual enslavement of the human colonists. These spiders had mind control powers, could discharge psychic energy, and could even travel through space and time. Despite all this, they often used humans to get around, crawling on their backs, turning invisible, and influencing their actions, similar to the Time Beetle from Turn Left. Their leader, the Great One,
The Great One is all-seeing.
All praise to the Great One.
The Great One is all-knowing.
All praise to the Great One.
The Great One is all-powerful.
All praise to the Great One.
was much larger than all the other 8 legs and wanted to control the entire universe using all the blue crystals. The Third Doctor defeated the Great One by giving her exactly what she wanted. By returning the final blue crystal to the Great One, the Doctor warned her that the power would be too much and would kill her. Ignoring his warnings, the Great One continued with her plan, resulting in her death, along with the rest of the 8 legs, due to the psychic link. Having been exposed to the radiation from the caves, the Third Doctor returns to his TARDIS and just about manages to return to Unit HQ, where he regenerates into Tom Baker's 4th Doctor. This wasn't the last the Doctor saw of the 8 legs. The Doctor would run into them across several incarnations, most notably in their 8th incarnation, but we'll get to that later. So far, every incarnation of the Doctor has had a run-in with at least one giant spider, and Tom Baker is no exception. During Talons, the Doctor has a brief encounter with a much smaller giant spider, having been blasted with a Sigma beam.
What the Sigma?
We can't forget the Alzarian spiders either from Full Circle. These little guys were quite nasty. Their venom had the capability to cause its victims to lose their memory and begin acting out of character. Thankfully, these spiders are from E-Space, outside the Doctor's mainline universe. As well as this, the 4th Doctor had another run-in with the 8 legs, and similar to the first 2 Doctors, several other run-ins with spiders in the comics. But it's the 5th Doctor where we finally get to touch upon a big finish, where he meets the Rachnos. Ancient humanoid arachnids from the dark times of the universe. Almost 5 billion years ago, they were nearly entirely wiped out in a war against the Time Lords. The Fifth Doctor finds himself dropped right in the middle of that war. I won't go into plot details, but I would recommend giving it a listen. Plus, as you may be aware, the Doctor does encounter the Rachnos again in his future. As far as I could find, however, the Fifth Doctor doesn't have any more significant run-ins with spiders, and lucky old Sixie manages to get completely off the hook, because I couldn't find a single instance where he comes into contact with spiders at all. During his 7th incarnation, the Doctor had an encounter here and there with spiders in the books and comics, but I just want to talk about the lava spiders. Dominion is one of those must-listen audio adventures, and I've been putting it off for years. So when I found out this story had lava spiders, it provided me with a perfect opportunity to give it a listen. The spiders in this story are from a different dimension, and they wrap their prey in webbing first, injecting them with lava before eating them. Lava people. Dominion features a lot of freaky monsters, and these guys certainly gave me the most chills. There is a harrowing scene when one of the Doctor's previous companions is nearly eaten by the spiders, and it's so disturbing. 10 out of 10 audio. Moving on now to my favourite Doctor, Paul McGann. Similar to Sly, being caught up in the wilderness era means there are plenty of comics and books with spiders, so I'm just going to tell you my 2 highlights. First is the mention of an interdimensional spider god during the events of the 11, and as foreshadowed earlier, the return of the 8 legs in audio dramas, The 8 Truths, and the World Wide Web. I listened to these audios a few years ago now, and from what I remember they're okay. However, I believe every 8th Doctor story is worth giving a listen. The plot surrounds the 8 legs attempting to take over Earth using the blue crystals. Spoilers, they don't succeed. Now, neither the War Doctor nor Nine had run-ins with actual spiders. However, the War Doctor did have Dalek spiders, as seen on the cover of He Who Fights the Monsters, and Nine had the iconic Minority Report coded robotic spiders from the End of the World, who helped the Doctor defeat Cassandra. The next time the Doctor would see a giant spider would be during the events of The Runaway Bride, where he was brought face to face with one of the only survivors of the Rachnos Wars. Teamed up with companion-to-be Donna, the Doctor uncovers the Empress of the Rachnos' plan to unleash her spawn on Earth. The duo travel back in time to the creation of the planet and learn that the largest rock that started the formation of the planet in the first place was in fact a Rachnos spacecraft carrying the Empress's children. The Empress plans to use a hole drilled to the centre of the planet to release her children. However, the Doctor, being the spider lover that he is, drains the Thames to drown her children before they even reach the surface. Anyway, the Mr. Men. The Mr. Men were a staple to my childhood, and if you don't know who they are, then who are you? The reason I bring this up is because they actually released a Doctor Who range of Mr. Men books. However, we're only interested in Doctor 11th today, because that's right, you guessed it, it has another giant spider. Doctor nearly gets Riverson killed trying to retrieve his fez. Along this journey, they come across many monsters, one of which being this pretty terrifying giant spider. But there is this one picture in the book which looks like Doctor 11th is checking out a river with 2 sus bunnies in the background. Other than this, the 11th Doctor also encounters diamond spiders, which weaved diamond webs in space, cyborg spiders with the ability to survive in space, alien pumpkin spiders, intergalactic treasure hunting spiders, and then the Doctor goes and says,
"You don't normally get spiders in space."
Which he evidently knows is not true, but it's okay because
You're one.
The Doctor lies.
Speaking of space, the moon is in space. That is where the 12th Doctor had his run-in with the spider germs. If you weren't aware already, the moon is canonically an egg. So when I was watching Lux, all I could think was, I wonder if Mr. Rigging knows that the moon is an egg. Anyway, these spiders are actually just overgrown bacteria that live on the egg. They all presumably die when the shell disintegrates and the alien flies away. In this case, the Doctor doesn't really play a part in the spider's death, which is a lot more than can be said about 13. in arachnids in the UK. Giant mutant spiders are running rampant in Sheffield thanks to some rich guy dumping toxic waste under his hotel, giving mutants lab spiders food supply to grow larger than their natural size. Tragically, in this story, the spiders aren't intentionally evil. They're just regular spiders that had been experimented on and grown too much. The evil rich guy suggests shooting the spiders, but 13 checks her bingo card and remembers she's already killed spiders by shooting them. It's crossed off right next to drowning. So instead, she opts to suffocate them. Bingo! And that brings us up to date. It's fair to say the Doctor has had a very long and negative relationship with spiders. But what about other spiders in the universe? Well, to name a couple, we have the bone spiders from a Class book. You remember Class, right? The hit show Class, right? Class? You remember Class. And K9 Mark 1 came across giant spiders in an alternate universe during the Missing Planet book by David Martin. But most interesting of all, how does Spider-Man fit into the Doctor Who universe? Well, as seen in The Return of Dr. Mysterio, Spider-Man is a fictional character in universe. Also, a quick shout out to Spider-Guy, a comic book from the 12th Doctor comic, which lives rent-free in my mind. However, this doesn't mean that Spider-Man hasn't cropped up as a potentially real character in extended media. For example, Doctor Who 64, a 3-panel comedy sketch allegedly sees the 5th Doctor encounter Spider-Man alongside a few other Marvel heroes. Now, strictly speaking, this actually takes place in a separate universe, Earth 33 1/3 in Marvel terms, but there is one more example of Spider-Man cropping up in Doctor Who. In case you don't know already, Doctor Who comics for a time were produced by Marvel Comics, which has enabled a little bit of wiggle room for Marvel Doctor Who crossovers. Eventually I plan to do an entire video dedicated to the links between the Marvel universe and the Who-niverse, but for now I'm just going to show you this one comic picture where the 8th Doctor gets a glimpse of Spider-Man from across the Omniverse. Again, that's another video for another day. So the mainline Doctor has come close to meeting Spider-Man, but never quite made it. But admittedly, that's probably for the best, given the Doctor's history of poisoning, disintegrating, drowning, suffocating, and now exploding spiders. Maybe the Doctor was the real monster all along.